from how his country utilized public-private partnerships in turning around the fortunes of its railway sector. Plus, it's a Thursday evening and we bring you yet another edition of the Business Agenda, all in this package. Stay tuned as the package unfolds, and we're taking a short break. The details will be back.
Business Live today is brought to you by GCB Bank.
So remember, you can always get interactive with us by tweeting. The handle is @JoyBusinessGH. You can also Facebook if you are a Facebooker. Our page is Joy Business, and for more business news updates, log on to www.myjoyonline.com/business. Now the details. The Transport Committee of Parliament is urging airline operators in the country to consider reducing their fares to reflect government's announced reduction in the price of aviation fuel. The NPA has currently offered a 25% reduction in the price of ATK. Chairman of the committee, Theophilus Tetechai, says Parliament was instrumental in lobbying government to address some of the operational challenges facing airlines, which include high cost of aviation fuel. In an interview with Joy Business, he said the decision to reduce the fuel has saved the country from losing some of the airlines to neighboring West African countries.
We had a meeting with the domestic airlines, and that was one major concern that they raised. As a result, most of the airlines were refueling outside Ghana, and you could imagine the loss that we're having as a result of that, simply because it was cheaper refueling outside Ghana. And as a result, the country was losing some revenue that could have been accrued as a result of aircraft fueling in Ghana. So we raised this issue with the former minister, that is Honorable Jafar Ativo, which he started working on before Honorable Fifi Kwete also came into office. And he also agreed that yes, that needs to be done, and that cabinet through the finance minister were working on it. So it was very gratifying that finally His Excellency the President has assented to that, and today airlines are going to enjoy a 20% decrease in fuel cost. At the point that we had meetings with the stakeholders, one of the issues that led to the hikes in fares was as a result of, one, the high cost in the fuel, and then two, other taxes, and then three, some legislations that have not been put in place, which is impeding on some of the airlines to acquire certain aircraft at some very good rates. So therefore, we have a combination of many factors. But I believe that the 20% decrease is a very huge margin. And for me as the chair, I will expect the airlines to also show some form of commitment, to show some of a form of good faith, so that the other aspect of their concerns which are yet to be taken on board, those issues will also be looked at. Because one, we are looking at the safety of members of, that's the traveling public. We are also looking at their businesses also thriving, and we're also looking at resources that we need to the benefit of the country. And I believe that if the sector is well catered for, especially with the huge infrastructural development that is currently ongoing within the aviation sector, I believe that it is one area that is going to really generate a lot of resources for this country. And I'm very grateful that His Excellency the President has really focused on that area.
Now, the Swiss ambassador, His Excellency Gerhard Berger, is urging Ghana to take a cue from how his country utilized public-private partnerships in turning around the fortunes of its railway sector. Out of the 947-kilometer stretch of railway, only 130 kilometers is operational for both freight and passenger services in Ghana. Government has therefore initiated plans to modernize the railway network by partnering private investors due to its economic benefits as a more efficient means of transport. Speaking with Joy Business, Mr. Berger said Ghana can learn a lot from Switzerland in the provision and maintenance of such infrastructure.
Out of the 947-kilometer stretch of railway, only 130 kilometers is operational for both freight and passenger services in Ghana. Government has therefore initiated plans to modernize the railway network by partnering private investors due to its economic benefits as a more efficient means of transport. The Swiss ambassador Gerhard Berger says government can learn a lot from Switzerland in the provision and maintenance of such infrastructure.
It allows goods to be transported about half an hour faster than it used to be before. I think there is a lot of potential for public-private partnerships because the private sector really is the carrier of ideas. Because government, again, by definition, government should govern and government should not engage itself into running companies. Government doesn't have the management capabilities to run companies, but the private sector has. And involving the private sector really is a key to many solutions that are needed and that I also see as being important or becoming important for Ghana. So I absolutely salute the fact that public-private partnerships are initiatives that we are going to see more often and on a very balanced approach in Ghana.
Mr. Berger, however, commended government for the strides made so far in the adoption of public-private partnership in other development projects.
Moving on, government has set up a committee to oversee the relocation of illegal and small-scale miners from AngloGold Ashanti Obuasi mine concessions. Invasion of the mine by Galamsey operators has often led to deadly clashes between mine security personnel and the intruders. Recently, AngloGold Ashanti sued Ghana at the International Center for Settlement of Investments Disputes over security concerns at its Obuasi concession. Ashanti regional correspondent Ohemin Teria has more in the following report.
The 15-member team will develop and implement a roadmap for peaceful exit of unlicensed small-scale miners to a designated site surrendered by AngloGold Ashanti. It will also assist the Minerals Commission to allocate concessions to small-scale mining interests. The committee, which is chaired by Engineer Kweku Frempong-Kuma, has 3 representatives each from the Minerals Commission, small-scale miners, and AngloGold Ashanti, as well as 2 representatives from the Obuasi Municipal Assembly and a representative each from the police, Ghana Chamber of Mines, and Adansi Traditional Council. The inauguration of the committee comes days after a demarcation exercise to release land to unlicensed miners. The Minerals Commission assured it will prevent the Obuasi mine issue from degenerating into crisis amid lamentation over effects of illegal mining. Chief Executive Dr. Tony Obin made the commitment in a speech read on his behalf by the Director of Policy, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation of the Commission.
In the very recent past, we've all witnessed the devastation that Galamsey has caused to some, if not most, of our water bodies, and its effects on the production and supply of water to various communities countrywide. There has also been casualties and loss of lives arising from conflicts in some areas where unlicensed illegal small-scale miners carry out their operations. And I'm sure you are very much aware of the fatality that occurred on this mine when our own brother, John Osu, who had served this company for so many years, had to lose his life. Clearly, this is a problem, and as a commission, we have been working with the support of all our key stakeholders to prevent it from generating into a crisis. The problem we have at Obuasi currently is a crisis or a near crisis situation which calls for immediate solution or immediate attention. It is clear that we need to strengthen, broaden, and coordinate better our efforts in tackling the challenge of illegal mining in the country. And I know measures have been put in place for the short, medium to long-term solutions.
Meanwhile, Adansehene Opejakotri Bonsra Efriye II is urging government to commit itself to the decisions of the committee. According to him, government has over the years failed to protect AngloGold Ashanti concessions.
Obuasi is in danger right now. Obuasi and Adanse and Ghana in general is in trouble. We as traditional rulers cannot sit down for people to do whatever they like when we have a government that controls the security forces. So where are we? Where is the government? This is the government in power. As a traditional ruler, I can say anything. I don't care. It's the government's responsibility to make sure the police controls Obuasi if there's a problem. Because the first person I call is the police if I hear anything about Galamsey or anything of that sort. And as soon as I was installed, I took it upon myself to stop this Galamsey. If I can't stop it, at least I wanted to minimize it. We all depend on Obuasi for our livelihood. So if we cannot stop what is going on currently at Obuasi, then why are we all here?
The committee has 1 month to submit its reports.
So live on Business Live, we're now taking a break and bring to you some developments elsewhere in the rest of the world.
UK interest rates have been cut from 0.5% to 0.25%, and the Bank of England has signaled that they could go lower if the economy worsens. The bank announced a range of measures to stimulate the UK economy, including an £100 billion scheme to force banks to pass on the low interest rates to households and businesses. It will also buy £60 billion of UK government bonds and £10 billion of corporate bonds. Governor Mark Carney said there was scope to cut the interest rate further. Cameroon's cocoa production rose nearly 16% year-on-year to 269,000 tons in the 2015-2016 season, and that's according to the National Cocoa and Coffee Board data released on Thursday. Africa's fourth largest cocoa producer has targeted an annual production of 600,000 tons by 2020. The 2016-2017 season opened on Wednesday, and the 2015-2016 figure surpassed the Central African country's previous record of 240,000 tons during the 2010-2011 season. Output since then has fluctuated due to pests, crop diseases, and a prolonged dry season.
Thanks for staying and welcome back. Up next is the business agenda.
It's Thursday again. You're welcome to the Business Agenda on Business Live. Today's agenda focuses on the power sector, where an environment and green energy consultant, Philip Akwa, is making a case for the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, to be granted more powers in tackling illegal connections. The Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, recently revealed that about $272 million went down the drain to power distribution. That's about 32% of power generated by the company that same year.
The key problem with policy and legislation, particularly legislation, is the question of enforcement. Now, even though the legislation exists, we have very low capacities to enforce the legislation to achieve the results, and then of course the objectives of the legislation. The fact that the policies exist, the fact that the legislations are there, means that the challenge to us as a nation is actually implementation. There are, even at the assembly level or ECG or institutions having pertinent legislations that deal with wastage, for instance, particularly with illegal connections, and yet the enforcement of it is lacking. Sometimes I believe, given my background, in enforcement, the key issue is capacities to do the enforcement.
You heard environment and green energy consultant Philip Akwate. I'm sure you'd be wondering what government's response would be to this. Well, the external relations manager of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Nana Yajantwa, disagrees the ECG needs a lot more powers to tackle illegal connections. For her, they already have enough powers. But in her view, the punitive measures that are instituted for offenders are not deterring enough. She's therefore recommending imprisonment of those who would engage in such acts to deter others from also getting involved.
The powers to deal with illegal connections they have. They even have a commercial court where they prosecute people who are caught engaged in illegal connections. But we believe, the PRC believes, that it's more of the punitive nature of the punishment that is given to them. Because if I engage in illegal connection, I've stolen. It's like stealing. And if I'm asked to pay a fine, certainly it is not a deterrent to the next person who is doing the same thing. We believe there should be more punitive measures. We believe that people should be imprisoned. And when that is done, then it will be a deterrent, because if people do illegal connections or consumers do illegal connections, it is very difficult to even determine it. For instance, we went on a monitoring program and somebody had put a meter under his bed, the connection. I mean, some very funny connections that they bypass prepaid meters and all that. So if it is punitive and you know that when you are arrested, you will be dealt with in a very harsh manner, it will be a deterrent to other people.
Manaya Jantwa is the External Relations Manager of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PURC. Do make a date with us next week for another edition of the Business Agenda, right here on Business Live.
So you'll catch a repeat of the Business Agenda tomorrow at 1 p.m. on the Marketplace. It's now time for the interview of the day.
Interview of the day.
Now, some players in the financial sector say the lack of credible and consistent policies in the financial sector is detrimental to agric financing, according to the 2013 Agro Policy Performance Barometer report by the Ghana Trade and Livelihood Coalition. Private persons as source of credit to smallholder farmers represent about 67.8%. It also indicates a cut in government expenditure to the sector for 2016 by 40 million Ghana cedis. Speaking to Joy Business, CEO of NDK Financial Services, Oko Nikwe Jani, said the challenge of accessing agric sector financing is largely due to the issuance of universal licenses to banks.
As a developing economy, and from my personal point of view, I believe that there was one big mistake that we made in the past by way of policy. In developing countries, we have specialized institutions that learn about industries, focus on that, expand it, and grow it by funding the activities of the operators. And I'm sure that is the reason why we had the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB, in the past. And that is the reason why we had NIB, which was established to focus on industry, growth of industry. We had Bank for Housing before, and the cooperative societies, cooperative bank was also there. What have we done? Over the years, because of policy, we have now decided that banks must all apply for and be given what we refer to as universal banking license. And if that is the case, which has been the case for some time now, nobody now sees himself or itself, no institution, no financial institution or banking institution sees itself as specialized in agric. So we are doing everything. And therefore agric appears to be reduced in the equation, partly because the risk is there, and partly because the license doesn't compel anybody to go there necessarily. And I think there's a flaw in the policy. That decision, in my opinion, was not thought through.
And of course, thank you very much for joining me on your favorite business program, Business Live. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji. You can always get interactive by tweeting at Joy Business GH. Is the business Joy, I beg your pardon, is the tweeting handle. And on Facebook, we are on Joy Business. That's our page. And for more business news updates, log on to www.myjoyonline.com/business. Join me again same time tomorrow for another interesting edition. Take care.